You've been trying to hold it all together, but no matter how tightly you grip, things keep slipping through your fingers. You're walking through a fog, where answers used to be clear. Now there's only silence. You keep asking, God, where are you in this? And the longer the confusion lingers, the louder your doubts get. But listen to me. You're not abandoned, and you're not off track. You're in the middle of divine strategy, because the very place where you feel the most lost is where heaven is moving the most. So stay until the end, because what feels like confusion is actually the cover for a holy breakthrough. You think you've been forgotten, but the truth is, you've been hidden, not from purpose, but for it. God hides those He's preparing, and sometimes the hiding feels like confusion. It feels like wandering. It feels like prayers bouncing off the ceiling and direction slipping through your grasp. You start second-guessing everything: your decisions, your discernment, your calling. You think, maybe I missed God, or maybe I'm being punished. But the enemy always weaponizes confusion where destiny is being born, because confusion clouds your confidence. And if he can't stop what God is doing, he'll make you question if God is even doing anything at all. But Isaiah 55:8-9 reminds you, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways." You're not being punished. You're being positioned. You're not being delayed. You're being developed. It's hard to see it when you're in the middle of it. When every door you prayed for remains shut. When every answer you seek seems to echo in silence. When even your faith feels shaky and your trust feels threadbare. But that's where God does his deepest work. In the silence, in the shadows, in the space where your understanding ends and his sovereignty begins. Proverbs 3:5 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding." That's the test, isn't it? Trusting when you don't understand, believing when the roadmap disappears, worshiping when there's no confirmation. That's the kind of faith that moves heaven. God doesn't need your understanding to move. He needs your surrender. And sometimes he removes every visible option, every fallback plan, every human safety net, just so you'll learn to lean only on him. You're not losing control. You're learning who's actually in control. You're learning that peace isn't found in clarity. It's found in Christ. Philippians 4:7 promises a peace that surpasses all understanding, which means if you have to understand it to have peace, it's not his peace. His peace shows up when nothing makes sense. His peace holds you when everything's falling apart. His peace isn't the absence of confusion. It's the presence of God in the middle of it. And he is present. Right now, in your disorientation, in your questions, in your ache for answers. He's not standing at the finish line waiting for you to figure it out. He's walking beside you in the fog. Psalm 119:105 says, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." Not a floodlight, not a spotlight, a lamp. That means he gives you just enough for the next step, not the next chapter, not the whole plan, just the next step. Because he's not interested in feeding your need for control. He's forming your need for communion. He's not trying to make you strategic. He's teaching you to be surrendered. So yes, it's confusing. Yes, it's frustrating. But that confusion isn't a curse. It's a cocoon. A place where you're being transformed. A space where old mindsets die and new revelation is born. The Israelites didn't understand the wilderness. They thought they were lost, but God was using the wilderness to unlearn Egypt, to break off old identities, to teach them dependence. What looked like wandering was actually preparation, and what looks like stagnation in your life right now, it's setting the stage for what's next. You don't have to see it to believe He's working. You don't have to feel it to know He's near. You don't have to understand it to know it's anointed. God's greatest moves often happen in silence. When Joseph was thrown into a pit, it looked like betrayal, but it was the beginning of positioning. When Esther was taken to the palace, it looked like captivity, but it was the setup for deliverance. When Jesus was buried in a tomb, it looked like the end, but it was just the beginning of resurrection. What looks like confusion in your life may be the camouflage for the miraculous, and the enemy wants you to forget that. He wants you to get so focused on what you don't know that you let go of what you do know. He wants you to doubt your worth, your calling, your progress, all because your path doesn't look like you expected. But don't measure your faithfulness by your feelings. Feelings are real, but they aren't always reliable. God's truth is your anchor, and that truth says you are chosen. John 15:16, called Romans 8:30, and covered Psalm 91:4. Even when it feels like nothing is working, everything is being worked together for your good. Romans 8:28. You are not off course. You're in process. You are not forgotten. You are being formed. The confusion is not an interruption. It's a refining. It's burning away everything that can't go with you into your next season. It's revealing what you trust most. And the truth is, God doesn't want you to trust the plan. He wants you to trust the planner. He doesn't want you to idolize the vision. He wants you to worship the vision giver. And sometimes He allows confusion, not to crush you, but to clarify what's been competing for your heart. So let the confusion do its work. Let it strip you. Let it humble you. Let it bring you to the end of yourself, because that's where you'll find the beginning of something sacred. That's where you'll hear the still, small voice cutting through the noise. That's where you'll realize that God was never far. He was just working in the silence. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." Stillness is your weapon. Surrender is your strength. And confusion is not your enemy. It's the soil where faith grows deep. You've been taught that clarity means God is close, that when the path is obvious and the doors swing open, that's when He's moving. But the truth is, some of His most powerful moves happen in the middle of your questions, not your certainty. Just because you can't see the plan doesn't mean there isn't one. In fact, the very silence you're walking through is often sacred. God is not ignoring you. He's guarding something holy. Isaiah 55:8-9 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways." That means the way He leads won't always make sense to you, but it will always serve His purpose for you. Right now, it may feel like everything is on pause, but spiritually, everything is in motion. You think you're stuck, but heaven is shifting things beneath the surface that you haven't seen yet. That relationship that ended, it didn't derail you, it delivered you. That opportunity you missed, it didn't close your future. It cleared the path for the one you're really meant to walk. You see delay. God sees divine rerouting. You see confusion. God sees construction. And just like a seed buried in the dirt, the darkness isn't the end. It's the beginning. He's doing something beneath the surface of your soul that wouldn't be possible if everything made sense. Because if you understood it too soon, you'd try to control it. And what God is building in you right now can't be built on control. It has to be built on trust. Proverbs 3:5 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding." And that's where your confusion becomes sacred, when it forces you to lean not on your logic, but on your faith. You've been leaning on people, titles, patterns, familiarity, and God is shaking all of it, not to punish you, but to reposition you, because you can't step into the next season still carrying the weight of old mindsets. He's not just leading you forward, He's leading you deeper, deeper into surrender, deeper into dependence, deeper into the quiet place where you stop trying to figure everything out and start learning how to simply follow. That's where clarity is born. Not from answers, but from intimacy. And you only get there when you stop striving and start listening. That's why the noise has been so loud lately. Not because God is absent, but because the enemy knows you're on the verge of hearing something life-changing. If he can keep you distracted, discouraged, and doubtful, he can keep you from discerning what God is doing in this moment. Because it's not random, it's strategic. The enemy doesn't attack what isn't about to shift. And if all hell has been breaking loose in your mind, your emotions, your atmosphere, it's because all of heaven is backing what's about to break through. You're not confused because you're lost. You're confused because you're close. And the enemy knows that if you ever make peace with uncertainty and keep obeying anyway, he can't stop you. So this is the moment you draw a line in the sand. This is the moment you say, even if I don't get the map, I still trust the shepherd. This is the moment where your worship becomes warfare, where your surrender becomes strategy, and your trust becomes the weapon that tears through every lie, trying to convince you that confusion equals abandonment. Because it doesn't. Confusion doesn't mean you're abandoned. It means you're being invited into a higher level of trust. And trust doesn't always walk by sight. Sometimes it just walks, one step, one breath, one whispered prayer at a time. And with every step you take, even in the dark, you're getting closer, closer to the revelation, closer to the realignment, closer to the breakthrough you didn't even know you needed. Don't curse this season. Don't run from this silence. Don't despise this fog. It's holy ground. And God is here, not shouting, but whispering, not rushing, but writing, not avoiding you, but anointing you. Because the confusion you're walking through is not the absence of his voice, it's the container for it. And when you learn to trust him there, you'll never be shaken by silence again. You keep asking God for clarity, but what if his goal isn't clarity? It's closeness. What if what you call confusion is actually the classroom where you're being taught how to walk by faith and not by sight? Because faith was never meant to be a backup plan. It was always meant to be your foundation. Hebrews 11:1 says, "Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." That means your confidence isn't built on what's visible. It's built on what's promised. And sometimes, the most powerful moments in your life don't look powerful at all. Sometimes they look like long nights of silence, like unanswered prayers, like confusing detours, like closed doors that used to be wide open. But what if the delay is divine? What if the silence is sacred? What if this isn't God ignoring you? What if it's God insulating you? Because what He's building in you right now requires a level of protection that only comes when He pulls you away from what you used to depend on. It's not rejection, it's redirection. You thought He left, but really He led. You thought you were stuck, but you were being set apart, because breakthrough doesn't come when everything finally makes sense. It comes when you finally trust, even when it doesn't. You've been looking for evidence in your environment, but God is asking for surrender in your spirit. He's whispering, stop trying to understand your way out of this. Worship your way through it. And that kind of worship, the kind that rises in confusion, that's the kind that shakes the enemy. Because when you choose to praise in the dark, you expose the lie that says you have to feel it to believe it. You've never been more dangerous than you are right now. Still trusting, still praying, still showing up, even when you don't have all the answers. That's what scares hell. Not that you're perfect, but that you're persistent. That you're still here, still breathing, still waiting on God with a heart that says, even if I don't see it, I know you're working. Romans 8:28 declares, we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love Him. That includes this valley, this confusion, this moment that feels like wandering. It's working for your good, because your confusion is not a detour. It's divine construction. God is not lost. He's not late. He's not panicking over your future. He's preparing it. And more than that, He's preparing you. That's why it feels heavy. That's why the waiting is stretching you. He's expanding your capacity for what's coming. And when you finally arrive in the place He's leading you, you'll realize that the delay was mercy, that the confusion was protection, that the silence was Him speaking in a different frequency, and you didn't miss it. You grew through it. So don't misread this moment. Just because it hurts doesn't mean it's wrong. Just because it's unclear doesn't mean it's not God. You're in the middle of the miracle. It just hasn't manifested yet. So keep walking, keep worshiping, keep believing. The silence is not your enemy. It's your invitation. The fog is not failure. It's the filter that keeps you from running ahead of His voice. Because if you could see it all right now, you'd settle for less. You'd stop too soon. You'd grab what looks good instead of waiting for what's God. But He loves you too much to let you miss the fullness of what He's planned. So He hides it, not to punish you, but to position you. So you'll keep seeking, so you'll stay hungry, so you'll learn that even in the confusion, He is still good. You keep thinking, if I could just figure this out, I'd finally have peace. But what if peace doesn't come from figuring it out? What if real peace is found in finally letting go? Philippians 4:7 says, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Did you catch that? Peace doesn't come with understanding. It comes above understanding. That means it's possible to have confusion in your mind and still have peace in your soul. Because God's peace isn't tied to your logic. It's anchored in His presence. And His presence doesn't require you to have all the answers. It just asks you to stay close. But confusion has a voice, doesn't it? It whispers lies that sound like truth. It says, you're doing something wrong. when all you're doing is growing. It says, you must have missed God when you're exactly where He placed you. It says, if God really loved you, He'd make it easier. But love doesn't always make it easy. Love makes it holy, and the struggle you're in isn't proof that God abandoned you. It's proof that God is refining you. Isaiah 48:10 says, I have refined you, but not as silver is refined. Rather, I have refined you in the furnace of suffering. You're not forgotten. You're being formed. You're not being crushed. You're being carved into something that can carry more glory than you ever imagined. And yes, it feels like breaking, but it's not breaking that destroys you. It's breaking that makes you. You've been asking for purpose, and God has been answering through pressure. You've been asking for clarity, and God has been answering through silence, because some things are too sacred to be shouted. Some assignments are too weighty to be rushed. Some callings can only be birthed in the confusion. So, what do you do when you're confused? You stay. You worship. You speak life, even when you feel like you're suffocating in questions. You cry if you need to, but you don't quit. You fall on your knees and remind your soul of who's in control. You don't fight confusion with more striving. You fight it with surrender. You say, God, I don't understand, but I trust you anyway. That kind of prayer, that kind of posture, that opens heaven, that moves angels, that terrifies hell, because confusion is meant to disorient you. But when you start praising in the midst of it, it loses its power. It was designed to paralyze you, but your praise becomes a declaration that says, this storm will not stop me. This silence will not shake me. This season will not define me. My faith is not in what I see, it's in who I serve. And you serve a God who is not confused, a God who is not late, a God who specializes in showing up right when you're about to give up. Don't stop now. Don't back down. Don't rewrite your worth based on your confusion. You're still called. You're still chosen. You're still marked by heaven. Confusion might surround you, but clarity still lives inside of you because Christ lives in you. And He is not the author of confusion. He is the Prince of Peace. So when the fog thickens and the silence gets louder, lean in, not into your own strength, not into your own plans. Lean into the whisper, the one voice that never changes, the one voice that said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Deuteronomy 31:6. That voice still speaks, even here, even now, even in the middle of this mess. You think the delay is punishment, but heaven calls it protection. You think the silence means abandonment, but God calls it preparation. You think your confusion is a sign of failure, but God sees it as the soil where trust grows deepest. Because if you only trust Him when it makes sense, it's not really trust, it's convenience. But when you're standing in the dark, arms trembling, heart full of questions, and you whisper, I still trust you, that's when heaven leans in. That's when all of hell shudders. Because you weren't supposed to make it this far. The confusion was supposed to make you give up. The silence was supposed to shut you down. The delays were supposed to break your faith. But look at you, still standing, still breathing, still holding on to a God you can't always feel, but refuse to let go of. And that, right there, is where breakthrough begins. Not after the storm, not once the confusion lifts, but right here, in it, Because the breakthrough isn't always the thing you prayed for. Sometimes the breakthrough is the strength God built inside of you while you waited. Sometimes it's not about what God changes around you. It's about what He strengthens within you. Romans 5:3-5 says, "We also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame." That means your confusion isn't wasted. Your waiting isn't wasted. Your wilderness isn't wasted. It's all working together to make you unshakable. And here's what the enemy doesn't want you to realize. You're becoming dangerous to the darkness. Because the moment you stop demanding clarity and start walking in raw faith, the chains that held you begin to crack. The moment you stop waiting to feel strong and start acting on what God already said, heaven begins to move. The moment you say, "I may be confused, but I will not be controlled by confusion," everything shifts. Because now your faith isn't based on sight. It's based on surrender. It's based on a deep, stubborn, spirit-filled belief that says, even if I don't understand, I'm still His. Even if I don't feel it, I still believe. Even if I'm lost, I'm still loved. That's what God's been after this whole time. Not just your answers, not just your clarity. He's been after your heart. And now that He has it, now that you've stopped chasing control and started choosing surrender, get ready. Because what's coming next will make sense of every tear, every lonely night, every unanswered question, every broken plan, every confusing moment you didn't understand. God is about to connect the dots. He's about to reveal what He's been doing behind the curtain, but not just to show off His power, to show you that He was never far, that He was never late, that He was never ignoring you. Isaiah 64:4 says, "Since ancient times, no one has heard, no ear has perceived, no eye has seen any God besides you, who acts on behalf of those who wait for Him." So keep waiting, but wait with expectation. Keep walking, but walk with boldness. Keep trusting, not because it makes sense, but because He is still worthy. And when the breakthrough comes, because it will, don't just shout because the storm is over. Worship because you discovered something sacred in the storm, that even when confusion covered everything, God was still guiding you, step by step, moment by moment, whisper by whisper. And now you carry something different. Not just survival, not just strength, but testimony. And that testimony will shake hell, lift others, and glorify God in ways you never imagined. Because you're not just someone who made it through confusion. You're someone who met God in it.